Welcome to this episode of the Pops and Drops podcast.
What up, people?
Today we're going to talk about an interesting news story that you brought to my attention.
Yep.
So an 87-year-old former Israeli cabinet minister responsible for space security has come out and admitted, theoretically, that
Theoretically?
the United States and
He
Israel...
admitted it. I don't think you can admit something theoretically.
No, what he admitted is theoretically true.
Okay.
That the United States and Israel are in communication with aliens,
Galactic Federation.
which they're calling the Galactic Federation.
Yes.
So we will talk about that and the reason we haven't heard more about it.
There's something different about you. I'm feeling different now that I found you. There's something different about you. Yeah, I'm feeling different now that I found you.
So let's get the details first.
Yep.
This guy who said he didn't come forward earlier because he would have been hospitalized.
He said 5 years ago.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, before the United States released, the Defense Department has basically said alien spacecraft are real, and they released footage of them.
Yeah, with the CIA?
No.
Or the FBI?
The Defense Department.
Oh.
The Navy. The Navy released the fighter jet footage of them chasing the Tic Tac alien over the Pacific Ocean.
That could not have been a part of the Galactic Federation, though. Those could be different aliens. But it's probably the same aliens. But if it's a part of the Galactic Federation, if they're in Federation space, they're probably a part of the Federation.
Okay. Of all the things to have conjecture about, that's probably the...
Well, if we're under the protection of the Galactic Federation, we're just not joined yet. Yeah. If there's hostile aliens, they could be protecting us from them.
That's true. But in theory, so a couple of other items from the news story. They say there's underground bases on Mars.
With Americans there.
With humans. Did they say Americans?
They said
or just
Americans,
humans?
yeah.
Okay.
They said American personnel.
Underground bases on Mars with aliens
And Americans
and
working
Americans
together.
working together. Okay.
I really hope this is not bullshit. I really want this to be true.
Okay. So we have, but this whistleblower, we'll call him,
Yeah.
has finally come forward. And things like they're aligning, right? The Space Force is the newest branch of the military.
Which is like the logo is the Star Trek logo.
Okay.
It is literally the Star Trek logo. If you look at it, it is literally the Star Trek logo.
That's fine.
The Federation is coming. It's coming.
Okay.
I told you this a long time ago.
But the aliens, according to this 87-year-old former Israeli cabinet minister, the reason that they haven't, I guess the aliens, again, this is secondhand hearsay recounting, but the aliens asked Donald Trump not to tell the American people that.
Yeah.
And their rationale was that.
Prevent mass hysteria.
Okay. So, sorry, guys. We're letting the cat out of the bag. Don't go crazy.
Yeah.
Mass hysteria now.
Well, a long time ago, the former Canadian prime minister or
the defense minister.
Said that aliens were real. But that was like years ago.
Well, so there's this, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but there is a thing called Project Disclosure with Dr. Stephen Greer, I think is his name. He organized it.
Yeah.
He was a surgeon from Virginia.
That's when they found the little alien that's like this big.
Yeah. And he created the CSETI program where people go out into the woods and meditate and visualize, and then the aliens come and flash lights at them or whatever. And there's some YouTube footage of that happening.
Yeah.
But so
In that, did they talk about the former head of China's wife who came out and said aliens are real?
I don't remember.
Because that was when I heard around the Prime Minister of Canada years ago,
defense minister,
whatever. There was also the former wife of a high-ranking Chinese official, or the head of China or whatever.
Okay.
Who came out and said that aliens are real and that China has known about them for hundreds of years. The top brass in China has known about them for hundreds of years, and that she was actually abducted and was and has been on alien spacecraft. The wife of a former.
Okay.
Yeah, and he didn't come out and did say no. He said no comment. Okay. When he was asked about.
Well, I mean, the Disclosure Project, there was dozens of U.S. government officials who basically came forward and said aliens are real.
Yeah. And
for some reason, there's some resistance, I don't know, among the general public, or
it will completely change the religion. I think it has more to do with the religious people, because if they think that God created Earth and Jesus and we're the center of everything,
okay.
I think that's the biggest problem, is that there's still, the majority of people are in the secular religions, are either Christian or Jewish or Muslim, and all of those are counterintuitive to aliens even existing in their scriptures. Even though, if you look at the Bible, what people back then were actually talking about and seeing was probably aliens. God to them was probably an alien.
Could be.
God could have, or the aliens could have burnt the bush that Moses and spoke to Moses. It was probably an alien. And if the seas were parted, that would be technology that the aliens probably had. That, there's a lot of possible. There's all those Renaissance paintings where there are religious Renaissance paintings where there are UFOs in the painting.
Sure.
So, just watch Ancient Aliens, people.
Well, the what are they called in the Hindu? The Vinyasas, or what are those things called?
Oh, the big They also talked about nuclear weapon, like nukes.
Yeah.
Back in ancient India, they talked about a nuke going off.
Right.
Which that had to have been alien.
Well, and they did talk about the flying craft.
Yeah.
And they also talked about a battle in space between two different factions, I guess.
I'm guessing the Galactic Federation won.
Well, I hope so. Well, the other thing the way that...
I think that the thing was that one of the alien races wanted to let us go and the other wanted to enslave us.
Well, if you go back to the stories of Enki, they did enslave us.
We were created to harvest
slaves.
Gold,
right,
for them. Which is why we place gold so highly. That's why we have that ingrained in us.
We were engineered.
To seek gold.
Interesting.
That's what I think. Wouldn't that make sense? They're gonna genetically engineer things to find these resources. They would want to put an innate desire within them to find and to keep and to hold.
Yeah, I guess if that's something that you could manage to get embedded in the DNA when you're doing, genetic engineering, that's possible.
Yeah.
It also could be cultural. If from the beginning,
yeah, gold is highly prized, which it's just another mineral or material. It's just another thing. It's just another thing that we place value on. Now, it is highly conductive. It's a really good conductor of energy,
right?
Which is why we use it in our phones and stuff like that. So,
and there's also some hypotheses that it is in its monoatomic form, that it is mana, that the ancient Egyptians used monoatomic gold to communicate with a different dimension. So
That's interesting. I haven't heard that.
yeah, well, yeah. There's some. There's a whole video rabbit hole on YouTube about, if it's still there, if they haven't taken it down, about Ormus.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So that's Ormes, ORME stand.
We made that once.
Yes, we've made some. Stand for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. That's what ORME stands for. But anyway, yeah, you can check that out if you want to get weird for a while.
And when we made it, didn't we? I was the one who said we need to play this 432 gigahertz thing, which is the frequency of the earth and frequency of love, whatever. And
right.
We played that, and we made more. We made more than you had made before.
Yeah,
because of that.
Yeah.
Frequency that we were blasting while we were making it. That was cool.
Yep. So that's essentially gold. I mean, the way that we made it, we used Dead Sea salt, which has a high concentration of the minerals, the whatever they're called, the noble elements, gold and rhodium and whatever the other ones are. So the other thing that, in addition to the underground bases on Mars that he talked about, he said that the reason that we aren't fully embraced, I guess, is that we don't understand what space really is.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that kind of goes back to our discussion last week
about what's going on in the universe,
or how the universe. What is the universe? Yeah.
Yeah. And he also said that we're not evolved yet.
So that's interesting.
Which makes complete sense to me because, I mean, I'm not talking about physical evolution. I'm talking about mental evolution.
Okay.
You know, we're still fighting. That's what I've been saying. If we want to get off of this rock, we need to come together. And that's why I'm not opposed to a one world government. I think we need one world government.
Okay. But the problem with that is that it doesn't necessarily stop fighting. If you look at the human history.
Well, if aliens came down and they're like, okay, you guys, we're ready to join the rest of the galaxy, then I think everything will be better.
For sure, but remember what the government has been and Hollywood have been doing to the consciousness of the population for decades. I mean, invasion of the body snatchers, the Independence
but also ancient
Day.
Aliens, dude.
No,
Ancient
I understand
Aliens
that.
has been on for a long time.
But this is the problem. In order for the government to control the population,
yeah,
they use fear.
Yeah.
They use fear of alien invasion. So coming out and saying aliens are real, they're not necessarily going to come out and say aliens are real and they're friendly and they're helpful and, we are ready.
If the aliens are like, you better say that to your people. You better tell them that we're friendly or we won't be friendly.
Well, see, but that's the issue. You have to... If the idea is for human beings to flourish and evolve and be fully engaged and be independent, be sovereign. Remember, if our race was developed as gold mining slaves,
yeah, but they could have been developed by
evolution that the aliens are looking for may be evolving from a slave mentality, where you allow a central government to control you and tell you what to do, to a higher plane of spiritual and intellectual existence where you're an independent, sovereign soul, where you're not allowing the federal government or the world government to tell you what to think and how to behave. The one world government may be what's keeping the aliens from coming down and saying hi.
I don't think that the Galactic Federation are the same aliens that created us. I think the aliens that created us lost in that war.
Okay.
And
That's why they haven't been back?
That's why, yeah. And the Galactic Federation was like, no, you can't create a species and then enslave them. That's not right. So
Okay.
I think that's what the war was over.
If the Galactic Federation has that point of view, then why would they have a different point of view about our own governments doing the same thing to us?
I don't think that the government is enslaving us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
California's on lockdown. You can't leave your house.
Yes, because of a deadly virus, not because of the government.
Do you know what the death rate from
Doesn't
COVID
matter,
is?
man. What's a lot now?
What is it?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Over 500,000?
The death rate from COVID in all the different countries where they've looked at the death rate, regardless of the policies that they implement.
America at like 300,000 or 400,000?
Regardless of the population or the policies, if you look at the death rate from COVID,
yeah,
0.3%.
Okay. That's
now
0.3% too many.
Sure, but it's also less than a lot of other things. It's less than heart disease. It's less than traffic accidents. It's less than a lot of other preventable stuff. The media and the government has used the COVID-19 panic to assert control over the population and to steal the election.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The whole vote by mail thing was because of the coronavirus pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic
It's not stealing the election if more people voted because they got the opportunity to vote by mail. That's not stealing the election. That's making the election fair. It's the opposite. If most people couldn't vote because they had work or they had children, it's allowing everyone to vote. It's giving everyone the choice. It's not stealing. It's doing the opposite.
Why at the same time you're implementing universal mail-in voting, why take away the signature matching requirement?
I don't know. I don't care. More people voted.
People, not necessarily, buddy. Why not check signatures?
Oh my God.
What's the point of not checking signatures? What is the rationale for taking away the requirement to match signatures on the mail-in ballots? Why do that?
Why have that in the first place? Every time I sign my name, it's different. It's kind of similar, but it's different because I have bad handwriting.
Okay, why?
So that's you discriminating against people who have bad handwriting.
The reason you do that is because the federal government of the United States controls about $1 trillion in spending. The economic incentives to try and take power are too great to go on the honor system. It's just too much money at stake to go on the honor system. Millions and millions and millions of dollars are at stake.
Okay.
And so people cheat. If you take away the requirement to match signatures, it's too easy to go out and print 1 million ballots and fill them in with a printer and turn them in to the county.
You really think that that's what happened when there was absolutely zero evidence of fraud, and even the Trump campaign said there's no evidence of fraud?
They did not say
Rudy
that.
Giuliani did say that in a court case. They said this is not a fraud case. We're not claiming fraad because fraud did not happen.
That's not what he said.
Yes, it is, dude.
No, it's not.
They said it's not. And then, dude, they have lost every single lawsuit. They keep losing. It's funny because Trump just keeps losing over and over and over and over and over again.
If you are one of 50 independent states, okay, and you say, okay, other 49 states, we will agree to be in a country with you, but in order for us to agree to be in this country with you, we have to have some rules about how we elect the people that run the federal government.
Okay.
And the other 49 states, or at the time, the other 12 states say, okay, this is the way we'll do it.
Back when the only people who could vote
Doesn't
were
matter.
white,
Doesn't matter.
slave-owning,
It
land-owning
is
males.
the contract. It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does, man.
No, this is the contract
cannot
that's in
frame
place.
everything
No, listen.
on a system based hundreds of years ago, before technology, before people even viewed other people as people.
The point
They did not view women as
doesn't
people.
matter.
They did not view African Americans as
Doesn't
people.
matter.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely
It doesn't
matters.
make the contract null and void.
It should,
Okay, but it doesn't.
but it should.
Well, it doesn't. Maybe it should, but there's a whole nother process to make the contract null and void, other than cheating in an election.
No one
If you
cheated
want-
in this
if you
election.
want to make
no one
the-
cheated in this election. You're making baseless claims,
No.
and they have been shot down over and over and over and over again.
Okay,
Why can't
let
you
me
just
ask you a
accept
question.
that your side lost?
Listen.
You're a sore loser.
No, I want you to understand what's
Okay.
going on.
Okay.
Okay. In the original contract,
Uh-huh.
it said selecting the electors for president is the purview of the state legislature.
Okay.
Not the state government, not the state governor, not the state
That was
secretary
before
of
there was
state.
50 states, and before, dude.
The contract exists. Everybody who joined the union agreed to the
Okay,
contract.
so then those first 13.
Everybody.
Then the first 13.
What are you talking
You're
about?
saying that it was based on the first 13. So the second there was a 14th state, the original contract was null and void.
No, it wasn't, because
Yes,
in
it
order
was.
in order for,
Yes, it was. You're the one who said you have to stick to the contract. The contract only included the first 13 states. So by adding a 14th state, you automatically
know
make the
how
first
this
contract null
works.
and void.
That's
That
not
is absolutely
true.
how it works. And you're just trying to bullshit your
Listen.
way into trying to get Trump to be president
The
again when he
14th
lost, and he keeps fucking losing. You just need to accept the fact that he lost.
Okay, if you were the 14th state,
Uh-huh.
there were 13 colonies.
Yeah.
They had created the United States
Uh-huh.
of America. They said to the 14th state, would you like to become a member of this union? The criteria is that you agree to this contract. This is the contract we use to govern ourselves. If you agree to follow these rules, you may join this nation. That is the way it works.
Okay.
Every state that joined said, yes, I agree to follow those rules. Now I'm a part of the country. That's the way the contract works.
Every
Okay.
single time a new tenant comes into an apartment, it makes the old lease null and void. And the same thing happens. You sign a brand new lease.
Fine.
Brand new
They
contract.
signed it.
A brand new contract.
They signed it.
And it should have been they should have, every
Well,
single
they
time a
didn't.
state joined, we should have torn up the Constitution and written a new one. Every single time a new state
didn't.
joined. We should have.
Okay, but we didn't.
Okay. And
Everybody
your guy lost. So just accept it.
Just
You just accept
just pay attention, because this is going to be important.
Okay.
This is going to be a Supreme Court case.
No, it's not. They're going to throw it out, just like they thrown out all the other ones. They won't even hear it. They're like, Biden won. His own people that he
Chancellor.
put in there were like, this is ridiculous.
They've
You need to
taken up,
stop.
they're docketing the case.
Okay.
And there's 20 amicus briefs by 20 other states.
Yeah, all
and
Republican
there's
states.
And there's 109 congressmen.
It's a Republican states are trying
It's a
to sue.
Republican Supreme Court.
Yeah, but at least they have some morals, apparently, because they keep shooting it down.
This case has not been shot down, Chancellor.
It will be. Well, just like the others. It's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Biden won. You need to accept it. You need to just accept
Okay,
it.
he won, but he won because many states broke the rules.
How did they break the rules?
That's what I'm trying to explain to
By
you.
having mail-in ballots, they broke the rules by allowing people to vote, by giving them the option to vote.
They broke the rules because it was not the state legislatures that changed the rules. The rules were changed by governors and secretaries of state without the approval of the state legislature. The state legislature in the U.S. Constitution is the one who is responsible for choosing the way that electors get selected and sent to the Electoral College.
So because they said mail-in ballots, you think that we should just flip the election because everyone got the chance to
It's
vote?
not because they said mail-in ballots. It's because they who said mail-in ballots were not the state legislatures. They who said mail-in ballots were the governors and the secretaries of state. If they who said mail-in ballots had been the state legislatures, there wouldn't be an issue because they would have followed the Constitution. The state legislatures have the power to select how electors get selected and sent to the electoral
You're
college.
trying to destroy democracy
the
by
governors
saying
and
that
the
people should not be
secretaries of
allowed to
states.
vote. You
No,
understand that? You are
that's not what
trying.
I'm
That
saying.
is what they are trying to do. They're
they're
trying
not.
to. You're someone who loves the Constitution and all that
Exactly.
bullshit. So you should be up in arms against the Republicans who are trying to destroy this country, because that is what will happen. That is what will happen. If
It's
you
what has
really
already
want
happened.
if you really want another civil war, it's coming. It will come.
It's going on right now. What are you talking about?
If it doesn't even matter, because the Supreme Court's going to throw it out, because it's absolutely ridiculous. But if the Supreme Court didn't throw it out, there would be a civil war. Because Trump lost. He lost. And the end of the Civil War, if there was a Civil War, because not only does Biden has the whole rest of the world behind him, Trump has what? Trump might have Kim Jong-un and Putin. The rest of the world is against MAGA. So if you want another civil war, you guys are going to lose, and Trump is going to be in prison, and probably so will a majority of his followers. If you want that to happen, go ahead. The aliens will probably come down and be on our side too. They'll be like, "Nope, sorry, Trump. We're gonna send you to Zorbulon 12, where there's a hell planet,
Okay.
and you'll be tortured in the Zebulon."
And this
mines
is
and
why
shit.
the aliens aren't coming down.
Yes,
because
of Trump. Thank you.
because the population of the world has not graduated from a slave mentality. You still allow the mainstream media to dictate what you think and how you believe. There's no critical thinking skills. Nobody is
I'm not
interested.
even paying attention anymore.
Exactly.
I'm not watching the news anymore because I don't give a shit. Biden won. I don't want to hear about the government and what they're doing. I don't want to know about what they're doing. Because I know that they do a bunch of shady shit, but as long as everybody is safe and there's reform and we make progress towards a better world, I don't need to know about the backdoor deals and all the bullshit that's going on.
So
because I know it's
reform
going
and
to go on.
reform.
Because absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Correct. Reform and progress towards a better world.
Yes.
And what makes you think that's Biden? He's been there 47 years.
I'm not talking about Biden. Biden's going to be out in 2 years, and Kamala Harris will be in.
Okay. Well, she's been there for a decade.
Yeah.
She's part of the problem, not part of the solution.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
When Biden turns 80, he is probably going to step down.
What's really funny is that if Trump had done what former presidents
If
did,
Trump had just come out and said, "Hey, people, there's a pandemic going on. You should wear a mask and also vote from home," then maybe he would have had a chance. But he didn't.
Let's go back
He
further
shot
than that.
himself in the
go
foot.
back. Yes, he did, but not then. When Trump took office back in 2016,
God,
he should have cleaned house.
fucking 50 years ago.
He should have
That's what it
cleaned
feels
house.
like.
Yes.
But he didn't. He did not drain the swamp. He filled it with more monsters.
Well, he didn't drain the swamp, and he didn't make room for monsters. He left all of the bureaucrats and those people in place. He should really have cleaned house, which is what Steve Bannon was telling him to do, and he didn't do it. He fired Steve Bannon instead, and this is what he gets. Anyway.
Yeah, he gets
gets
sent to jail. That's what
if you were elected president and I was advising you, the first thing I would say is get rid of everybody. Literally everybody. You have to staff the whole place with people that agree with your policies and have your best interests at
I wouldn't
heart.
do that. I would make a team of rivals like Lincoln did.
Yeah, well, that's the problem that Trump had, was that he left all of his rivals in high positions,
God.
and they wasted his whole presidency making up shit about Russia.
Okay.
Anyway, so back to
Can
the
we get
aliens,
back to aliens?
please. Okay, so
Where do you think they're coming from?
well, probably Sirius.
Where's Sirius? Is that Orion's belt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Sirius is where if you look at the pyramids in Giza,
Those are the ones that line up with
they
Orion's belt?
they mirror Orion's belt, and then I think one of the channels that comes out of the king's chamber, one of those shafts,
Yeah.
points directly at Sirius.
We're closer to Cleopatra than she was to when the pyramids were built.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about that.
So,
And Caesar.
this is the other thing that something to ponder is it's quite possible that as a planetary species, humans were already engaged with aliens 100,000 years ago,
Yeah.
and that when the aliens are saying we haven't evolved to the point where we're ready to engage with them, they could just be talking about this iteration of evolution, because there's lots of evidence. You know what the Younger Dryas is? The Younger Dryas boundary?
The layer, the sedimentary rock?
Well,
The
that's
layer
just the evidence. So the Younger Dryas is the time period in the geological record where the temperature dramatically increased and then decreased and then increased again. Over 1,000-year period, there was this huge swing.
Yeah.
And there's increasing evidence that the reason that the temperature rose so dramatically so quickly is that there was asteroidal impact across the northern hemisphere ice sheet. They found one of the craters on the coast of Greenland. But there's lots of geological evidence in the way that the geology of the United States, particularly in the western Badlands, look like. That there was 3-mile-high floods over a 3-day period.
Okay.
In the western part of the U.S. And the only explanation for that is if a burning hot asteroid slammed into the glaciers
And melted it.
across Canada and Greenland,
Yeah.
melted all that water, and it just rushed through the landscape. With that happening, the sea levels were estimated to rise 400 feet in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that could be the Great Flood of Noah.
Yes. And now, if you go along the coasts, particularly in the Mediterranean region, you find, even in Japan actually, you find cities sunken below 150 feet of water.
Yeah.
And these are cities like the ones that are still above the sea in Peru, like the
Are you talking like
Chichen Itza, and with the giant megalithic.
in the Philippines? Like near
constructions.
there's ones in the Philippines too.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. So, there's the megalithic construction dated to more than 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
The Younger Dryas boundary is 11,900 years ago. So essentially 12,000 years ago, a comet hit the Earth,
Yeah.
across the northern hemispheric ice sheet. Flash melted.
Or aliens
Flash.
sent a missile.
I think the geological evidence would be different if they sent a missile. I think they're pretty clear.
I mean,
think
a
it's
comet's
pretty-
just a big rock, so they could have shot
Well,
something.
a comet's a big accumulation of ice and mud. An asteroid is a rock. A comet is not a rock. A comet's frozen mud and water. That's why a comet has a tail.
Okay. But it still could have been alien made.
Okay, but I don't know why aliens would have done that necessarily. What would be the point of that?
If we were on a bad path
Okay.
and they wanted to wipe us out, I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe they could have, if they were here, they probably definitely could have prevented it and maybe just didn't.
Well, maybe, but I doubt it.
You don't think that they have the technology to thwart comets and asteroids? If it's a comet and you said that it's just frozen, they could have zapped that thing.
That's potentially.
So maybe they, and if the Noah story is true, then maybe it was the aliens who were like, yo, dude,
Get a boat ready, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's possible.
because something's coming.
Possibly. Yeah. Well,
I need two ancient civilizations. Like, aliens would be gods,
yeah.
and they have like all the evidence in the Southwest of all the Indian tribes or the Native American tribes. They have like their gods look like aliens with helmets on.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I don't think there's much resistance to the idea that, I mean, among some communities, obviously there's resistance, but I don't think that people are totally disbelieving of the idea that there are aliens in the universe and they've visited this planet in the past.
What do you think the percentages of people in the world that believe that aliens are real and have been here and will come back?
Probably more than 75%, close to 80 probably.
Even with all the religious people in the world, even with all the Christians and Muslims and Jewish people who are like, it goes against everything that they believe in.
Maybe. I don't know necessarily. I mean, I'm not a religious scholar, so I don't know how much of Judeo-Christian history and books or Islamic says that there are no aliens.
I mean, it would go against everything.
Why?
Because their whole thing is that we are the center, we are the creation of God, and we are the center of everything. And
well, those aren't. I mean, you could be we are created by God, but not necessarily we are the center of everything.
Well, I don't know.
We are created by all gods.
I don't think someone could be super religious and also believe in aliens.
Why?
Because it's counterintuitive.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
We're all God's children. Just whatever planet we happen to land on. Why is that? You could be super religious and believe in aliens.
And believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that he walked on water and all that bullshit.
Well, don't you believe there's a universe where that's real?
Yes, I do. I do, actually. I do. I believe that in the multiverse that there is a universal dimension where there is... See, I don't believe in hell in this universe, but I believe that there is probably another universe where hell does exist and that a version of heaven does exist.
Okay. Anyway.
Because someone came up with it, so it's there. They just tapped into that. Dante tapped into hell when he wrote the Inferno.
Yeah. Well, we had that discussion already. There's a lot of evidence that the accounts of what happened during the Younger Dryas boundary event, in the telling and in the translations, explain most of the big miracles that are described in the Bible. So, for instance, when there's a giant tsunami, okay, what happens when there's a giant tsunami is that the sea level recedes prior to the crashing of the water. And so if the Israelites had been on the beach of the Red Sea or Dead Sea, whichever one they crossed, the Dead Sea, I guess, at the time when this happened, the sea would have, pulled out and there would have been a land bridge, and it wouldn't have been there for long.
Yeah.
But this idea of the Israelites running across this land bridge and then the water crashing in on them behind them and killing the Egyptians who were chasing them, if the timing was right, that could be a real thing that happened if there was a tsunami that,
Or it could have been aliens.
Doing what?
Parting the sea with some sort of gravitational weapon.
Okay, I don't know why the aliens would necessarily have been intervening on behalf of the Israelites.
If they saw slavery and they saw someone breaking slaves free, why wouldn't they help if they could?
Okay.
Like if I was an alien and I
Yeah.
went to another planet and I saw some fucked up shit and I was like, well, maybe I can just help them from up here without going down there and letting them know what's up. I'm going to help them from up here.
Okay.
That's what I'd do if I was,
And
I would
it's just-
try
it's
to
just
steer humanity in the right
just
direction.
random
without-
about when they intervene and when they don't, because there's slave trades going on right now in Libya. Right now, live slave auctions since the intervention of the U.S. military in Libya, where we took out Gaddafi and turned that into a failed state. The slave markets are back. So where are the aliens?
There's slave markets.
Yes.
Why isn't NATO on top of that?
NATO was the one who killed Gaddafi in the first place. You got
Okay.
Hillary Clinton to thank for that. That was her policy.
But wasn't he torturing and murdering his people?
Probably. So was Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
And who put those guys in power in the first place?
we did.
Yes.
I know. The government is fucked up, man.
Exactly.
I'm not saying
Thank
it's not.
you.
I'm not saying it's not. But it's also made up of people. And it's made up of people whose consciousness are constantly evolving and growing, hopefully. Like, I don't think Mitch McConnell's conscience has ever grown past middle school, but there are people who are trying to make things better.
And when they go to Washington, they run up against the 4 million federal employees who've been unionized and working there for decades and who aren't going to change the way they do
it all
things.
down. Like, rip up the Constitution.
No, actually, we need to follow the Constitution because the
Which says we can rip it up. It says, hey, if this isn't working out, change it.
It says these are the limited enumerated roles for the federal government, and don't take power away from the states and local communities and accumulate power at the federal level, because that's what we just fought a frickin' revolution to get out from under. The Constitution constrains the federal government, and the federal government for over 100 years has gone beyond its mandate and is doing shit it should not be doing. If you want to fix the problem, everybody should read the Constitution and the federal government should follow the frickin' rules.
They're not going to. It's power corrupts, man. That's why I'm saying I think that everything should be, and we should vote on everything. Everyone should vote on their phone. Everybody should have it. Everyone should vote on their phone.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
That's what you
That
want.
is a very That is a very onerous process. Everybody who would vote on their phone in order to get good outcomes would have to understand what they were voting on, do
Yeah.
their personal research,
Yeah.
and make logical and rational choices.
So before you vote for whatever issue,
you have to take a test.
no.
Why?
Well, maybe on that particular
Right,
issue.
that's what I mean.
So they give you a document screen, and you have to do the thing where you scroll down to the bottom, and then you click that you've read it, and then after that document screen, then you could have a test, like a quick 5-minute test on the issue, and then you could be able to vote on that issue. That's actually a good idea. I completely agree with that idea.
Okay. There's 2 issues. You would actually have to have 2 different documents. You'd have to have the document written by the people who were in favor of the issue and those who were opposed.
Yeah.
And then in the construction of the test, you would have to have the 2 sides agree on the test questions.
Yep.
Okay. So this, for every issue that you're talking about,
Yep.
you're talking about half an hour to an hour's worth of reading and consideration.
Yep.
Then a test.
Yep.
The people that failed the test wouldn't get to vote.
Why wouldn't they be able to retake the test?
Oh, they could. If it wasn't just the same questions.
Well, yeah, it would have to be. It would have to
New
be from
test, yeah.
Well, and you can do that just like the real estate test.
Yeah.
It's like 100 questions from an assortment of 3,000, and everyone's test is different. So it's possible to do that,
Right.
So that people couldn't cheat.
Okay. So you've got
But that's
you've
still
got
taking.
the testing, and you've got so for every issue,
Yep.
you've got a lot of work going into putting these issues on phones for people to vote on.
Yeah, but you're also taking, you'd be removing the Senate, you'd be removing the Congress, you'd be taking all that out because this would be in place of. So it wouldn't.
But how do you even initiate issues?
Well, maybe then take away the Senate and leave the Congress.
Well, then what's the Congress doing?
The Congress is the ones that are creating the issues that are, and they're proposing it to the people.
Okay. So, and this goes back to the debates. All of these issues that you're
'Cause
thinking
isn't
about
that
and
what-
that you think are fresh were talked about hundreds of years ago.
Before there was technology, though.
No, but it
man.
doesn't matter. It's not.
It
It's
does
not.
matter.
No, it's not the instrument. It's not the instrument that you use to make the decision.
It is.
It's the question of no. It's not. It's the question of whether you let a mob make a decision or you have the mob elect representatives, and
would
then
be
the
doing that.
representatives.
It would be doing that because the representatives would be the ones who would be proposing the questions for the people. The representatives would be the ones who are deciding what issues the people should vote on
and framing those issues.
and framing.
You
those
don't
issues.
really-
But you have both sides. That's what I'm saying.
But what's the problem is now you've removed accountability instead of increasing accountability, because when the representatives that you elect to go vote on the issues cast a vote, then you can hold them accountable and not reelect them, right? But if they're just going there and they're just framing the issues, then half
the issues that
then
they frame
instead
would
of
still have to be voted on.
but that's what I'm saying.
So they would.
It's
still be
much
voted
easier.
on.
Okay, let's give you a very simple scenario to react to. Okay, scenario A. You elect me to represent you in Congress.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I go to Congress, all these issues come up, and I vote on them on your behalf. And there is a record of how I voted.
Yep.
After 2 years, you can look at my record of how I voted.
Yep.
And you can consider whether or not you want to reelect me to go back, or you can replace me with someone else.
Yes.
Okay, so that's scenario A. Scenario B is you elect me to go to Congress or whatever the body would be called to discuss issues and frame issues and decide whether to put issues in front of the total general population for consideration.
Yep.
Okay. Now,
Which you also vote on.
No,
And
no.
your record is public.
I'm not voting on them. You're
Yeah.
voting on them.
You're voting on them too because you're a member of the public, and the only difference is
Doesn't matter.
yes it is. Yes, it does matter because you have to vote on the issues. Every issue that gets sent to the public to be voted on, you also must vote, and your record must be shown on the app. That takes away places accountability back.
Okay. Yeah, potentially. But then I could figure out how to vote based on how I would get reelected in my...
That's what's currently happening.
Not really.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
What's happening now is people decide...
Congressmen and senators vote on issues in order to be reelected.
Right, but not based on what their constituents think. They're voting to get reelected based on how much money
They're donors.
how much money they'll raise.
Yeah,
so
so
that they
when-
can run TV commercials,
Yes.
so that the uninformed populace who
Yes.
doesn't pay attention,
But this way, the
but
populace
only
would be
votes
informed.
based on a television commercial and what the mainstream media tells them, instead of doing any research and doing any actual evaluation of the voting records.
Yep.
So there's no accountability because American citizens are disengaged.
But this would be forcing them to be engaged.
But so here's the question. Just because it's on the app doesn't mean I have to participate.
No, and that's your right.
So I don't necessarily. So you know what happens in primary versus general elections, right?
Well, it's different for each state because there's caucuses and then there's actual
But
primary
in
elections.
terms of the way that it pushes the candidates in primary elections, party elections, it is the fringe of the party who participates in the primary election, and they nominate candidates, and the candidates have to move towards the fringe part of their party to get the nomination. And then in the general election, they say they come back towards the center, right?
Yeah, but
Now, if the only
like if that
people
was
participating,
the truth, then Bernie would have been the candidate, not Biden and Hillary. But I mean, he kind of got screwed.
yeah. And remember when all 11 candidates were standing up there on the debate stage and they said, raise your hand if you believe in Medicare for all. They all raised their hand. Raise your hand if you believe that there shouldn't be illegal immigration, that everybody should be able to come across the border. They all raised their hand. In the primaries, the fringe policies get agreed to. They lie, the politicians lie to get the nomination,
Yeah.
and then they come back in the general and they what they call move to the center to win the general election. If every single issue and every single vote is occurring on an app where only the most engaged people are participating, then you're going to be pulling policy apart. You're going to have the fringe from one, the liberal fringe, the leftist fringe and the conservative fringe pulling apart the policy proposal. So that's moving away from the center, moving away from consensus, making us more divided, not less divided.
Perhaps that's only if the general public is more divided and not.
No, because the general public doesn't pay attention. They don't care. You can barely get them to participate in a general election. They're never going to be turning on their app with a little notice pops up every time an issue they're supposed to vote on comes on there.
I think that my generation would. I think we're much more engaged.
But your generation isn't the whole country.
It's getting there. Me and the kids below me. And they are more engaged than I am.
And more conservative, luckily.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
Do some research.
No, they're not.
They are.
Gen Z
Yeah.
is not more conservative.
Yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
They're much more libertarian than the millennials. They
I'm
are.
Not, okay, but that's not conservative.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. That's fiscal conservative and social liberal.
Okay.
That's not conservative.
It's conservative in the sense that they don't think
Fiscally. They want lower taxes, but
Smaller
socially they
government.
want everybody to be accepted.
sure.
So it's not more conservative. It's actually a more enlightened liberal. It's not.
It's a real liberal. What do you mean more enlightened liberal? Thomas Jefferson was a liberal. Thomas
Also
Jefferson
owned slaves and had
Thomas
sex with them. So
Jefferson's-
can we just not bring his name up anymore?
No,
Because he's not a good person.
We will continue to bring up the name Thomas Jefferson.
He's a bad person.
You haven't done any research on Thomas Jefferson.
I know that he had slaves, and that's all the research I need
Exactly.
to know. That's all I need to know.
Chancellor.
That's all I need to know, man.
Okay. Well, 100 years from now, people are going to look back at you based on the things that you do, that everybody does because of the times you live in, and they're going to say, oh, I can't believe you're talking about Chancellor Moore. He was a terrible person. He wore green hats.
No, they're
Yes.
not, because that's ridiculous.
Well, what you're saying is ridiculous.
No, it's not. Me wearing a green hat is not the same as owning slaves. It's ridiculous.
In the time where everybody owned slaves, then the differentiation
Not everybody owns slaves.
pretty much. Then the differentiation is between
Only the rich white men
That's not
who
true.
own land.
That's not true.
There was a lot of
Do you
people
know if
in
you
New York.
if you
there
go
was a
back
lot
if you
of-
go back in history and you look at the United States, there were black people who owned slaves.
I
There
know.
were freed slaves who owned slaves.
Yeah.
Okay, so just lay off the rich white guy stupid shit. The issue is that in that time in history, the differentiation was not between people with slaves and without. It was between people who treated their slaves well and people who treated their slaves
my God.
poorly.
Oh my God.
And look at
should not
Thomas
own people.
Jefferson wrote one of the clauses in the Declaration of Independence that got excluded from the final document said slavery was evil and he wanted to get rid of it. And Thomas Jefferson is the person who wrote that paragraph.
He also owned slaves and raped them.
He owned slaves,
And he had sex with them.
and one of the slaves may have seduced him.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying, you got to frame it the way you frame it.
Oh my God. He owned them. He raped them. If you own someone or something, you can't be seduced by it. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. He had all of the power. That's like saying Harvey Weinstein was seduced by these actresses who wanted to succeed. No, he used his power and he raped them. There's a very big difference, man.
Okay, so every porn actress is raped by her producer?
No. That's her career choice. If she wants to, sex workers are not the same
The
as
actresses,
being raped by someone in
the
power.
actresses that had sex with Harvey Weinstein were not making a choice. I want to be in a movie. I want to be famous.
Yes, because they were not making a choice because he said to them, if you don't do this, you're never going to work in this town. That's the power.
Well, was it true?
Yes, it was true. A lot of people who refused did not. The women that did refuse did not have the successful careers.
Okay. All I'm saying is you have to be consistent in your application. Okay?
Yes, using power is not okay.
Right. But there are powerful people, and there are other people who will do things that you might think are untoward to gain access to that power, and you're holding it against them because they make that choice.
But they didn't have, but it's, if you're a slave, or if someone says you're not going to work in this town if you don't have sex with me, then that's fucked up and that's rape.
Okay. Look, we just have to fundamentally disagree on this.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's bad, it's gross, but it's just as gross for the women who decided to do that.
Oh my God, they didn't decide. That's what I'm telling
What
you,
do you
man.
mean? So let me ask you this. So you're saying that those women who went in to have those meetings with Harvey Weinstein were then handcuffed, blindfolded, and raped?
That's probably what it felt like to them, and that's what you don't understand. If Harvey Weinstein said
they made a choice. They said, okay, if this is how you become a successful, famous actress,
I have to sleep with this troll.
With this troll.
and if
I
I
don't have to be a famous, successful actress.
Oh my
I
God.
don't have to do that. I can go down the
And he
street.
said,
I can go down the street and work at McDonald's.
Oh my
I do
God,
not
that is
have
so
to do
ridiculous.
this.
That is so
How?
ridiculous. Because
How?
if it's something they've been working for their entire life and someone comes to you and says, if you don't do this, you're never going to work in this town, do you not understand how fucked up that is?
Yes, I do understand how fucked up it is.
Well, then why are you arguing for Harvey
I'm not.
Weinstein?
I'm arguing against calling it rape.
It is rape.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. If someone
Because
says,
the
if you
women-
don't do this,
the women-
your career
the
will be
women-
over. That is rape.
The
That is
women,
using power.
the women who are raped, who are actually raped, they don't have a choice.
To them, it wasn't a choice. That's what you're not understanding.
What do you mean to them?
To the ones who are like, it's your career, it's your life, it's your livelihood, it's everything that you've ever wanted since you were a little kid. If you don't do this, then it's never going to happen. That's not a choice. That
Yes,
is
it
not
is.
a choice.
Yes,
no,
it is.
it's not, man.
You know what? You can say, you know what? Screw you, Harvey Weinstein. You don't run me. You don't run this
No, but
world.
but he did run their world. That's what you're not understanding.
Harvey Weinstein was not the only movie producer in
But
Hollywood.
he had connections with every other movie producer in Hollywood. And he said, if you don't do this, you will not work in this town. And that's what you don't understand. To them, it was their world. To them, it was their world. And you're not going to ever understand that world because you were never in that world. And I was for 7 years.
You were a victim of your own ego. You were a victim of your own ego, as were they. And they felt like the only way that they could survive or be successful was to give in to this situation. But that wasn't
So
the
it's
truth.
like they didn't have a
That
choice. It was
wasn't-
almost as if they didn't have a choice. So they were raped. You just said it. You just stated
I
it.
just said
You
it
just
was
stated it.
almost as if they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, like they. Yeah, exactly.
But almost as if they didn't have a choice is not the same as they didn't have a choice. Because the women who really did get raped, physically, raped, they didn't get to choose whether or not this was going to happen to them.
It's not. You don't. You're not. You just don't understand
It's
it.
calling what these actresses did with Harvey Weinstein rape is discounting what happened to women who really have been raped.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Dude, you don't understand because first of all, you're not a woman, and second of all, you've never been in that world. You've never been forced to do things
It's not
that
being
you didn't
forced.
want to do.
It's not being forced.
When I was working for the movie producer and I was crawling on the side of highways and collecting wood and then hand making thousands of those e-cigarettes, I felt like I was a slave. I felt enslaved. I felt like I didn't have a choice because if I didn't do those things, I would not have succeeded in that world. And I eventually woke up to the fact that how messed up it was, and I stopped doing those things.
Correct.
And that's why I wasn't successful in that world. Because
No,
I didn't.
that's not
Yes,
true.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. If I had
Bullshit.
done oh my God.
Bullshit.
You don't know. You've never been forced to do things
Chancellor.
like that. You don't understand it. And the only time that you were ever
So what
and
you're-
the only
what
time
you're
no, I'm
telling
gonna go
me-
back. The only time that you ever were approached in a situation where one of your superiors within an industry told you to say things or to do a certain thing, you snapped and you threw a candy dish at him and you got blackballed. So you should understand.
What are you talking about?
When you got
I was never blackballed. What are you talking
from
about?
the radio industry, when you threw the candy dish at your boss because he refused to pay your
Don't
friend.
know what? What? You are making shit up.
Did you not throw a candy dish at one of your
No,
bosses
I
because he
did not.
refused to pay one of your friends who did a bunch of commercials?
No,
Yes, that you're telling me that didn't happen.
that did not happen. Well, I don't know where that story came from.
Really?
Yes. When I was working in radio, programming a station in St. Louis, okay, they decided, although the radio station was a contemporary music radio station, the sales manager found some guy who would pay him to run a jazz show on Sundays. The general manager decided to run the jazz show instead of following the music format. So it was like, imagine if you're listening to Z100 in New York City playing top 40 hits, and then you roll around to 2 p.m. on Sunday and all of a sudden they start playing jazz.
Okay.
Okay. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Right.
So you never had
So
a
I
friend
had
that
a-
recorded commercials.
No.
Okay.
So I threw a temper tantrum. I never threw a candy dish at anyone. I got very upset. I left his office. I went around into the recording studio, and I think I threw a tape dispenser at the wall.
Okay.
Okay. So I did have a temper tantrum. He did hear it. He heard the temper tantrum,
And you got
and I got fired.
Yeah.
I didn't ever get blackballed.
He didn't say you'll never work in radio again.
No.
Well, then where did that come from? Because I've heard that story like 30 different times, and there's been a bunch of different. It's morphed over the years.
You didn't hear that from me. You might have heard it from your mom, but no. Nobody said you'll never work in radio again. I mean, it's the best thing for you. It's the best thing that ever happened.
Why? You could have been Imus, man.
No, because
I
first,
could have been a DJ a long time ago. Might not have been the best
at the
thing.
time that I was working in radio, it was during the transition where companies were consolidating. Up until that time, it had been an FCC regulation that one owner could only, at a maximum, own 7 a.m. and 7 FM radio stations. That was
Okay.
the max. And you couldn't have more than...
Prevent monopolies.
Yes, and to ensure that the community was served. The broadcasting spectrum was about serving the community, so not about making money like it is now. So you could only have 1 a.m. and 1 FM, and the maximum you could have in any one city was one AM/FM pair. Like right now, iHeartRadio owns
Everything.
5 or 6 FM radio stations in the same markets.
Yeah.
That was illegal when I was working in radio, but it was at the time where those regulations were going away, and Viacom and Capital and all these big companies were starting to buy up. Clear One was starting to buy up all of these radio stations and small groups and turning them into giant groups. Well, the other thing that was happening while all that was going on was that formats for radio stations were getting nationalized and automated, essentially. So you don't need a different top 40 music program director in every city when Clear Channel Communications owns all of the radio stations, and the guy who programs Z100 in New York can just take his program that he's put together for that radio station and
syndicate it out everywhere.
Play those songs everywhere. So that was the time that I was in radio, and because so many people were getting fired because of the consolidation, the salaries for broadcasters was cut into a quarter. The guy that was my boss at K103 in Portland was making $70,000 a year. Way back then.
That's a lot.
That was a lot. 2 years later, when I left radio, he was in Santa Clara, California, making $28,000 a year. Now, he continued in radio because he actually made most of his money voicing commercials and he needed access to the recording studios at the radio station to do the commercial voice work.
Yeah.
So he programmed a Santa Clara radio station for $28,000 a year just so he could go in every day and record Safeway commercials.
Yeah. You could have done that.
I could have. I did some voice work. I did some industrial narration, but I didn't need to be working in radio, and it didn't make any sense. It made no sense to stay in an industry where the salaries are, falling by 20% a year, unless you're going to be one of those people who is the national program director for this.
You could have done that. You could have been like Howard Stern or
no.
Imus. Didn't you want to be Imus?
Certainly there was the possibility, but not the probability. And
yeah.
And chasing that dream with 2 little kids was irresponsible. Like, you don't have any kids. You going for 6 years in Hollywood trying to be an actor with no children is fine. But if you had 2 little kids and you were not making any money trying to be an actor in Hollywood for 6 years, then you hopefully would have made different choices.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't have partied as much. I would have actually focused on my career. That was my biggest problem.
Okay. Maybe you should have had 2 little kids.
And working for the producer and not taking advantage of the situations that I was placed in. Like, I met I met James Cameron. I had dinner with Aaron Paul and Corey Feldman, but I didn't do I was too scared to even think of things that I could have talked to them about or approached them about, And I knew I was going to have dinner with Aaron Paul and Corey Feldman weeks before it happened. I knew I was going to meet James Cameron before it happened. I had screenplays that I had been working on that I could have retooled and just handed Aaron Paul a flash drive when I was at the dinner and be like, hey, check this out when you get a minute. Like, that's what I would have done now. Like, but hindsight's 50-50 or whatever that saying is. I just didn't take advantage of the situations I was in.
Okay.
At the time because I was stupid. Like, I was dumb. And I thought that, and this was before I had my ego destroyed by those podcasters, when I thought I was the shit all the time. I thought I was the coolest thing on the fucking planet. When I wasn't, I was just a little fucking punk. I was just a little punk who but so I'm glad everything happened the way that it did, because I feel like I'm a much more enlightened and in tune and positive person now because I got broke down, because I dealt with that crazy ass relationship, and because I had people telling me I was the worst person on the planet because of a book I wrote. Because of all that, I've become a better person. So I'm glad that. Anyways.
So did you listen to all the episodes
Of this?
No, of the book club.
No. I listened to maybe a third of them.
Oh, couldn't take any more.
No. At the beginning, it was funny. I thought it was really funny, but then they got really mean. And then at the end, they felt bad. In the last episode, they were like, "Look, man, we don't."
I thought
know.
you said you didn't listen to the whole thing.
I did. I listened to a third of them, but not. It wasn't like the first third. It was random.
Oh, okay.
But I listened to the last one where they were like, "Yeah, we don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but like, I don't know." Like they were very dejected.
Yeah.
At the end,
So are you.
Yeah, but I'm glad now. I had to get torn down in order to be built back up into a decent human being because I was not a good person.
Okay.
During my 20s. Was selfish. Beyond selfish.
I can't disagree.
Okay.
I was the one paying all the bills.
No, I worked, man.
Okay. So we had a very interesting discussion today, and we didn't really go very far into the whole alien thing, so we can come back to that. Maybe there'll be a headline or something in the next few days to warrant further discussion of the...
Maybe the aliens will come.
That's the issue. The aliens
enter a universe where the aliens are coming.
But what does that mean? Like, the aliens have come. That's what I don't understand.
I just want them to like land on the White House lawn and be like, "Yo, what's up? We're here, dog. Here's a bunch of new technology. You want to live forever? We got you."
Yeah, but why would they do that?
They wouldn't, because we're too stupid right now. Eventually, we will join the Galactic Federation.
If there are people, the CSETI program, I guess, is people meditating on interdimensional travel and understanding the motivations of what does Stephen Greer call it? Intergalactic diplomacy or something like that. Anyway, well, we're here. We're not too far from Mount Adams. There's a big ranch about
Skywalker Ranch. Is that in Mount Adams?
I'm not sure if
Skinwalker. I think
there's
that's
a place.
in Utah.
There's a place up at Mount Adams where they say the UFOs come in and out of the mountain.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so,
when the world opens up, we should go there.
Okay, we can do that. That'd be fun. But I mean, it's like we're probably if the aliens are watching the podcast, you could just come visit us here.
I've seen them before. I saw a UFO at the Grand Canyon.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because me and my ex-girlfriend I flew into Phoenix, and Grand Canyon is like 6 hours away from Phoenix, so it's really far away. And we had to go do a bunch of stuff, and we didn't get to Grand Canyon until it was pitch black, so we didn't even really get to see the Grand Canyon because it was pitch black. But we did get to see a UFO while we were there. We're like, oh my God, what is it? It was like zigzagging, and then it stopped, and then it like zigzagged a little bit, and then it stopped.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. And she was not someone who believed in aliens before that. When she saw that, she was like, oh my God, maybe this is real. And then she started watching Ancient Aliens and stuff. And I was like, I told you. But anyways, yeah.
All right. Well, part of the issue with the aliens not announcing themselves and not us as citizens of the world not getting the full story is because of this central government control.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Okay, so here's that's a good segue. We're going to be playing my song Control. So,
right. What's the motivation for this song?
Honestly, it was the sample that I heard. It was Take Control, but it's all about like the DJ taking control of the crowd.
Got it.
So,
All right. Well, hope you enjoy Control from Chance the Closer.
yep. Adios.
Chance. Closer.
DJ, DJ, and take me away with you. DJ, DJ, bring me where the sky is blue. Control. Control. DJ, DJ, and take me away with you. DJ, DJ, bring me where the sky is blue. Control. Know that I live for the pressure. Know that I live for the pressure.
Don't lose your chance.